We are live.
Good evening. We have returned. I'm Susan Wilson, President of the League of Women Voters, and we are now handling our second part of the debate, which is for the East Hampton Council candidates. I'd like to welcome them, Tom Flight, David Leese, Scott Smith, and Michael Wootton. Thank you very much for all being here and being willing to answer questions for the public. The order of speaking will rotate alphabetically. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. The candidate making the first opening statement will also be the first to respond to the first question. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to respond to each question. And in addition, you each will have 3 opportunities of 1 minute each during the debate to rebut an opponent's response. And that used to be known as the red card, but since we don't have red cards, please make sure you raise your hand so that I see and I can acknowledge you when you want to do a rebuttal. Okay. Each candidate will have 1 minute closing, and closing remarks will be made in reverse alphabetical order. So let us begin with Tom Flight. Opening statement, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to the League of Women Voters for all you do for politics in our country. So my name is Tom Flight. I'm from Montauk. I'm the Democrat running for East Hampton Town Board, and as you can tell from my accent, I grew up in the UK, but for the last 2 decades, I've been lucky to call Montauk my home. It's there that myself and my incredible wife, Georgia Biondo Flight, chose to raise our 3 incredible children, 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, and an 11-year-old. All of whom are at school at the local schools in East Hampton and Montauk. Georgia teaches English East Hampton High School, while I own a bookstore and apparel retail business out in Montauk, employing many local families. I'm a longtime EMT for the Montauk Fire Department, and since 2016, I've been honored to serve as the elected member of the Montauk School Board. I understand the need to protect this community, both the environment and the people who live here. If elected, my focus will be on 3 crucial priorities: increasing affordable housing, updating the town disaster and emergency plans, and addressing the drivers of climate change to safeguard the town's natural resources. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. David.
Good evening. I want to thank Susan Wilson and the League of Women Voters for organizing tonight's event. My name is David Leese, and for the past 6 years, it has been an honor to be the town councilman for the hometown that I grew up in, East Hampton. During my 47 years of living in East Hampton, I have become an expert in the values and traditions that have set the town of East Hampton apart from other communities that have forever been trying to replicate the inherent foundation that East Hampton was founded on. I was fortunate to be brought up by wonderful parents that took the job of parenting extremely serious. The son of a former 29-year school teacher from the East Hampton School District and the son of an immigrant who left his home country of Indonesia to make a better life for his family. They both fought hard to establish values in myself and my sister to mold us to be successful throughout our adult lives. I was educated in the East Hampton School District and also thankful to have the opportunity to seek higher education at the Pennsylvania State University. As a childhood cancer survivor, I learned very early the very hard lesson of never giving up and trusting the Lord's decisions. My volunteerism includes being a founding member of Pathers for Humanity, Citizens for Access Rights, and over 8 years, I led the fundraising efforts to complete the historic Amagansett Life Saving Station. I also have successfully completed a 5-year term on the Town Zoning Board of Appeals. Over my entire life, I have observed the changes that our community has gone through, changes that have been both positive and negative, changes in socioeconomic strata, discrepancies, and overdevelopment of areas that tarnish East Hampton's unique character and the diminishing purity of our environmental resources. At the same time, I've seen many positive actions that have occurred: preservation of our surviving historical structures, increased local volunteers and organizations in our community, and the priority of dealing with sea level rise and clean drinking water. I look forward to continue the positive long-range planning that our town desires and deserves. And most importantly, as a husband and father of 4 young children, I have the pleasure to educate them in their personal life's experience so that they can bring out the best in themselves. It's through their lens of my children that I perform my work. For them, I ask myself daily, what does the next generation need for East Hampton? For all those factors that I've stated above, I respectfully ask for your support and vote in the upcoming November 7th election. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott, you're next.
Yes. Hi, my name is Scott Smith. I have been involved in the community for my entire life. I did live in Montana for 10 years, which was a fantastic experience. But I'm involved in the fire department here in East Hampton. I have two children in the high school, a senior and a junior. And I decided to run for town board about a year ago because the direction that this town is headed, in my opinion, from my childhood years being here to the present day, is a direction that I do not think is conducive to the family environment, the friendliness, the town that I've called home my whole life. And I felt a need that I had to jump on board and right the ship and deviated into a direction that I think holds on to the values of the Bonnickers, holds on to the values of why people live here. And just simply, I just felt such a need because I see the children now that are running out of things to do. And with taking privileges away, I don't believe in taking anything away. I believe in coming up with solutions. And the current administration with lawsuits, closing airports, restrictions. It's just not the freedom, the town that I grew up in. I'm happy with it. So I'm eager to get involved for my children, for future generations. And I want to hold on to the families that are being forced out of this town because of the housing issues that we have. And then my name is Scott Smith. I'm asked for your vote November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Michael.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Wootton. Good evening to everyone out there on this Zoom debate. First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's event and for everyone here participating. I'm honored to be invited by the organization that has a renowned reputation for hosting debates focused on nonpartisan issues with the main goal of informing voters. This is great for our democracy, and it's certainly with that goal I wish for our community. Even though I may be a newcomer to local politics, I have been an active member of my community since I Wainscott over 25 years ago. I studied engineering at Georgia Tech, and I earned an MBA in finance in the Columbia Business School. And the most important things I learned from both engineering and business is problem solving with practical and balanced solutions. I am currently an elder at the Bridgehampton Presbyterian Church and currently serve as a treasurer. I've been doing that for the last 10 years. I'm a lifeguard, triathlete, and lover of our ocean and our beautiful environments. As a result, I'm passionate about quality of life issues. My philosophy in politics doesn't really fit into our rigid two-party labels. I am fiscally conservative, socially progressive, and I'm an advocate for our environment. And I feel like I've taken a balanced focus. I believe good governance requires participative management skills and the ability not only to lead, but also to listen, bridge differences, and build consensus. I hope to bring people together to find common ground and common sense solutions to solve these complex problems. While campaigning, the most common question I get is, why are you running? I think the answer is simple. I love our town, its people, its culture, its heritage, and I believe it's super important for us to be able to discuss, dissent, and argue in an open, transparent manner. All these issues that face our community. This open, transparent discourse, I think, has been lacking in our town government for some time. I want to change that and ensure that all voices are heard. I do believe that the one-party rule of the Democrat Party in the East Hampton for over a decade has created an echo chamber where critical ideas and critical thinking are not heard or considered.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to some questions. And we will begin with Tom. Most people would agree that the East End is being overrun by deer. Much has been discussed, but little to nothing accomplished. What practical steps would you take to control the deer population in East Hampton?
So, you look at why the deer is where it is. It's a twofold problem. One is that its habitat has shrunk over time with development, and the other is that it critically has no natural predator out there in our environment. Has grown and it's encroaching on our environment, resulting in car crashes and destruction of private property. So we do need to address this deer issue. I think it's the first thing to call out. What is the most humane way to do it? I think the most clear-cut study on this issue comes from the University of Indiana, Bloomington, where they believe that a cull is the best way of immediately reducing the population. However, whether that is the best long-term management of the population is another question. Sterilization techniques, which I've looked into a little, they work at stabilizing the population, but they're not really effective at reducing the population. So whether we use a combination of those two in order to do that, I think is a possibility. Whatever happens, it has to be done in a humane fashion as much as possible. We have to recognize the deer as part of our environment, and we have to ensure going forward that we have a healthy, well looked after deer population out in the ecosystem. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. David.
Good evening.
Oh, same question. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. Okay, sure. Tom is correct. There's also ways in which the town has used its 2009 deer management plan to try to effectively work on the deer population, which is not in a healthy balance, not either just for the Homo sapiens, for the environment, but also for the deer population itself right now. The ways that we can look into trying to work with the deer population is also by using town's permitted nuisance permits, or putting actually individuals that are sharpshooters or potential hunters in touch with locations in which property owners have nuisance permits or actually permissions to use large enough pieces of property that they can actually respectively and humanely actually potentially decrease the herd. The herd size right now, as we see that signs on our roadways that are produced by the Department of Land Acquisition and Management, those numbers are only increasing. 600 people, 600 incidents a year on state, county, and also town roads on there. Unfortunately, the largest aspect that are culling the herd right now is the automobile right now. But that comes at actually a safety factor for the town of East Hampton. Moving forward right now into analyzing any type of potential cull would actually have to be studied. It would actually have to be discussed throughout the community right now to find out where there is a consensus of doing so. But one of the easiest ways we can immediately take action on it right now is continued using John Rochetta or other means of educating individuals and putting them together to be able to do recreational culling on properties that are allowed to currently right now.
Okay, thank you. Scott.
So I agree with Tom about what he says about culling the herd. When I lived in Montana, we had issues with a lot of. I worked on a cattle ranch, and we had issues with boom and bust populations of deer. We had blue tongue disease that killed a lot of the herds out. So culling a herd is, in my opinion, is the solution to getting the deer population down. We have more deer hit car collisions in anywhere other than in New York State by far. One thing that majorly concerns me is the Lyme disease issues that we have. So many friends of mine have Lyme disease. They've been on antibiotics nonstop, and it doesn't get rid of the Lyme disease. So I think the 4 posts. I know that North Haven invested $100,000 into doing 4 posts where it helps kill the Lyme disease by the deer rubbing its neck. I know that the East Hampton town, I think, invested $6,000 in that. North Haven saw significantly reduced amounts of Lyme disease as a result of that. But sterilization of animals, yes, it's humane, but it's not going to solve the problem. I think we need to, due to the lack of predators, I think we need to just cull the herd and do it in a management situation. I don't think we need to bring in specialists and spend tons of money to figure out what is pretty simple. If we kill more does, then obviously less animals will be born. And I think that not only the revenue from the hunting dollar, but the everyone will benefit from a culling procedure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Yes, good evening. This sounds like this issue is a sort of a non-controversial one. It sounds like all 4 of us are in agreement. I think that from what I understand, the hunters that I speak with are they're very humane. They always shoot to kill, so that they don't shoot and wound deers. Typically, when the deers are shot, and they're done it successfully in one shot. So I think that that the culling the herd is one useful way to keep the population down. As all four of us have said, the deer population has got out of hand, and it hurts not only our human beings by virtue of creating automobile accidents, not so much by the automobile the deer, but sometimes the automobile swerves to avoid the deer and hits a telephone pole, and serious injuries can occur, obviously, and of course Lyme disease, dreadful disease. So I think it appears that we're all in together on this issue of culling the herd.
Okay, thank you. Next question. We will begin with David this time. Do you feel there is good communication and cooperation between the board and the trustees, and how can it be improved?
Very good question. The East Hampton Town trustees actually predate the East Hampton Town Board and actually predates the United States Constitution. They came out of the Dongan Patent in 1648. They have actually been the protectors of East Hampton Town's environment, East Hampton Town's natural beauty for a lot longer than any of us have ever been here. Communication has to be strong with the East Hampton Town trustees, and I do believe it's actually getting stronger, most recently in the last 10 years right now then too. There are so many areas in which both the East Hampton Town trustee board and also the East Hampton Town Board and the town staffing have overlapping. Many of those actually come from water quality. Many of our town trustees actually sit on our water quality, not many. We actually have a dedicated seat on the town's Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee, so there's great communication there for the trustees. The trustees also have a seat that is also on the town's Nature Preserve Committee, because not just water and beaches, but they also provide authority over some of our actually trails then too. Levels of communication can always be better, but what is very nice, I can always pick up the phone to Francis Bach, to David Cataletto, Ben Dollinger, John Alders, and others right now to discuss what they are doing to protect what we cherish so much. And I think those are the integral values that we have in East Hampton right now. It's nice to see Francis Bach when he comes in as the clerk of the trustees. They participate in the town's permitting process for special events. So there is communication, but I do always say, and you will hear this, that it can always be better right now. One of those ways is pretty much just meeting with them, talking with them more than two, or just having them routed on our list when there's an active application in which they might actually be the boundary neighbor of the property then too. Overall, I look forward to continuing to only strengthen the communication with the East Hampton Town trustees, but it has gotten better over the last 10 years.
Okay, thank you. Scott.
So this question, it to me is a relationship between the trustees and the town employees. And right now in town hall, there is, I've spoken to a lot of the employees, and there is a lack of pride. There's a lack of camaraderie. There's a lack of feeling that they are a part of something. And the communication, from what I understand from the current town board with the employees of the town, is non-existent. Again, I've spoken to a lot of people that work for the town, and they just want a pat on the back. And what I want to do, I want to bring to town hall, I want to bring pride. I want to bring a sense of family back. I want to get to know everybody and get everybody to be more productive. When you bring pride, when you obviously bring productivity, and everyone is going to want to do a much better job. Right now, I think people, I know recently 5 police officers were offered jobs in the town of East Hampton, and all 5 of them declined because they quote unquote said it was a hostile workplace. They didn't feel that they were like joining anything unique, and they were underpaid. So they didn't take the job. And I think the communication from the top to the bottom needs to be all universal, and everyone needs to be a part of a movement. And collectively, when we come together, the result is going to be fantastic. That's what I want to bring to town hall. I want people to feel appreciated, loved, and a part of a movement, which I think has been lacking for so long in town hall. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Michael?
Yes, I'm running for town board. I'm not in the town board, so I really can't comment on the communications between the town board and the trustees. But I can follow up a little bit what Scott said regarding the morale and of the town employees. The town employees I've spoken to, and also in walking around campaigning, I hear that as Scott mentioned, that the morale among town employees is very, very low. I guess that's a function of a number of things. I guess a function of basically that it's hard to make a working wage out here. As I understand that the highway department has 6 employees. So if we get a heavy snowstorm, it would be difficult to have our roads plowed. I guess this goes back to the issue of affordable housing. They can't live in the community. They got a stressful workplace, and the other, I guess the one good first step I will say is that this upcoming budget, which is proposed in 2024, the town employees are getting a raise of I think it was like 5%. I could be wrong about that, but still not quite enough to compete with the private sector, or it's not quite enough to compete with the adjacent town communities.
Okay, thank you. Tom?
Thank you. I think this is one where you need to have some experience of municipal management in order to understand it. I think the town trustees are critical to the well-being of East Hampton town. A lot of our goals are shared. I mean, the number one goal for them is water quality, and that is something we share too. So ensuring that effective communication is key. How does it happen? Do we need to invest in improved technology? Yes, potentially. I think that there's possibilities there, as with any organization. I think one of the things you find as you involve yourself in this community is that it's often a lot of the people doing the same things. And, you know, I can tell you from my time in the ambulance company, my driver is a trustee. I'm not going to say his name, but we frequently discuss these issues. So I think actually getting out there, talking with the trustees is critical. It's not just about imposing ideas and saying, you know, town operations aren't where you want to be. It's about actually doing. So I think, you know, that active communication with people is key, but also investing in ways to have better communication between the two organizations is critical as well.
Thank you. The next question is in 2 parts. And we will start with Scott. What projects do you see as priorities for Community Preservation Fund monies in the areas of land preservation, water quality, and affordable housing? And where do you stand on the pending nomination to add the Crandall Norfolk Woodlands to the town's nature preserve?
So just to reiterate, the question is the CPF funding money, okay. I believe that the CPF fund is a fantastic thing. I believe it has a balance of roughly $100 million now. I'm totally for it. I think it's a fantastic idea, and it preserves what originally was to preserve large tracts of land, farmland. I don't want to use this word historical, but using large tracts of land to preserve the country feeling that we all love. I believe that fund has been abused a little bit by buying small tracts of land. 1/4 acre lots, 1/2 acre lots, to me, is not what a large tract of land is. Unfortunately, by doing that, it decreases the availability of land for our residents. And this is very near and dear to me. So many families are leaving East Hampton because they can't afford to live here. And then thank you. And then the grandparents are deciding, do we move to Virginia or do we not move to Virginia? So using that money to buy small tracts of land, I am not for. But I'm 100% for using that money to do a phase 1. In my opinion, it should be phase 1 to clean water for ditch plains. 100% needs to be addressed. This has been something that's been going on for 10 years and hasn't been addressed. That money, I think, could be allocated for clean water 100%. And I don't think we should do the 0.5% tax on it. I think we should reduce the CPF fund to 1.5 and then use 0.5 towards the to use it towards the other thing, because I think adding more taxes to the people out here makes it even more difficult for them to live here. And I'm out of time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Michael.
Can you repeat the question for me again? I'm sorry.
Yes, certainly. What projects do you see as priorities for the Community Preservation Fund monies in the areas of land preservation, water quality, and affordable housing? And where do you stand on the pending nomination to add the Crandall Norfolk woodlands to the town's nature preserve?
Yeah, I thank you for repeating the question. Yeah, I definitely believe that the water quality preservation plan has to be a top priority for us. You know, the water is our life source. It nurses us, it bathes us, and our oceans and bays feed us. And of course, the recreation and commerce depends upon it. Recently, there was an article in Newsday, I think it was April this past year, and it talked about how Suffolk County was the #1 abuser of utilizing pesticides, and it was by far and away the worst county in the state. And I believe Suffolk County only has 10% of the farmlands. I think we poured like 6.5 million tons of, 6.5 million pounds of pesticide on our lands, and of course that goes into our waters. And what's dangerous about that, we only have one aquifer on Long Island for drinking water, so it's very important we preserve that. And this doesn't even mention the fact that fertilizer also creates nitrogen and runoff, which also pollutes our bays and waters. Recently, we just had a debate on Montauk, and that morning there's a triathlon. And the triathlon, as many of you probably know, is a swim, bike, run. Anyway, the swim was canceled 48 hours prior to the race because of rainwater had polluted the Fort Pond where the swim's going to go. So in some, water quality on Long Island is adversely affected by overuse of pesticides, fertilizer, and of course, outdated septic systems, which is also impacted by these huge monster-sized homes and with these huge subterranean basements. So we need to address those problems. Maybe one way to do that is to talk to the Suffolk County and get not only Suffolk County, but also town-wide bans and limits on pesticide use and fertilizer. Maybe to educate the public on how to better utilize pesticides or limit those pesticide use. And of course, maybe try to institute the use of bioswales, which help filter the water as it enters the drains into the bays and estuaries.
Okay, thank you. Tom.
Thank you. So, you know, I think we've talked about water quality here, and I think it is a critical issue. Newsday did a very interesting article a while back called "The Blue Economy of Long Island," and it was really focused about, you know, looking forward, how that is the best strategy for the island as a whole, for Suffolk County and for the East End. So methods by which to protect our water quality, both in terms of still water bodies such as Fort Pond or Big Reed Pond in Montauk, but water quality too, our aquifers. I think that's a critical element there. It's interesting when you look back at the history of how the CPF came about in 1998. Why did it come about? It was concerns over overdevelopment, much of which we're seeing today. We saw the recent town hall meeting about the revision of the town code. The things you're hearing people say in those meetings are very similar to the things people were saying in 1998, which is that we're concerned that our local environment is being destroyed. Now, that has not been, is because of the CPF and additional measures that have been adopted by Democratic leadership over the last 20 years. That is why this area is such an environmental outstanding spot. It's those kind of policies that we need to continue as we move forward to ensure that we continue to preserve as much of this natural, beautiful environment as we can.
Thank you. David.
Yes, thank you. I agree with Tom and what he is stating about some of the Democratic leadership and how they've actually effectively used the CPF fund over the last 20 years, and specifically over the last 6 that I've actually been on the town board. The town has been very aggressive in progressing into accumulating farmlands right now. At least 3 large farmlands, 29 acres in Amagansett, 12 acres in Cedar Street, and even in Springs just most recently, to bring back our agrarian lifestyle, which is one of the main general obligation laws, part of the CPF funds. Next, the Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee, and that portion takes 20% of the CPF 2% transfer tax. There is a lack of inherent knowledge by our competitors right now about how the CPF is actually used. And that experience that is being shown right now, or inexperience, is come out in this answer, which I will actually answer for you. We have preserved multiple structures using CPF properties. The Dodge property is about to close in Springs. It's a beautiful vista in the heart of Springs. The Carl Fisher House in Montauk then too. We have used the CPF water quality in Dish Plains. Actually, just right now on the town's planning board, they got a recent grant for upgrading their packing or septic system in there, and they're discussing it in the site plan right now. The town does not buy quarter-acre lots. I don't know where that reference is coming for with the CPF, unless it potentially has multiple wetlands or some type of high environmental criteria that goes through a great scoring. We are very, very sensitive to the supply and demand of land and how the CPF is used for it then too. There's not a balance of $100 million. There's not a 0.5% tax that comes from that. That's the housing tax. And that's so the information that's being put out there is completely incorrect right now then too by our competitors. Lastly, right now, the Crandall Norfolk Woodlands, as you asked right now, which no one else has actually mentioned, many of those properties were purchased by the CPF. Crandall Street was actually opened up by my father when he built one of his first lots there a long time ago. And most notably is that what you have to do there is you have to make sure you acquire the title to make sure the ownership of the land is actually known.
Thank you very much. We have time for one last question. And this is the one that I've selected of over probably 40 others that I could ask you, but this is of interest to some of the residents in East Hampton Town. East Hampton Town has opted out of permitting marijuana sales, a potential source of increased tax revenue. Do you agree with the town's decision, or would you reconsider it? And we will begin with Michael.
Yes, hi. I agree with the town's decision with regard to opting out of that provision. I think it's marijuana use does not help our teenagers one bit. I think it, especially for young minds that are developing, I think it creates a certain degree of passivity. And I'd rather see us, those teenagers outside playing or getting away from their cell phones or PCs, and this marijuana use is just not good for young developing minds. So I agree 100% with the town to opt out. Even though marijuana is available elsewhere, I just don't think it helps to have it available freely in the town of East Hampton. I'd like to see if we can somehow find activities and ways to attract teenagers to do things other than hanging out at the 7-Eleven. One good thing we have here in town, which I think has been a great help for teenagers and in terms of healthy activities, is the Buckskill Ice Rink, as well as the YMCA programs. I guess that's a little bit off topic with regard to marijuana, but I think that giving young people activities to do and redirect their energies away from alcohol and marijuana are good uses of our time and focus.
Thank you very much. Tom.
Tom,
He's muted.
It's a great question, and I'm really glad you brought it up. I'm going to come at this from an EMS perspective, and I'm going to say something a little bit different here, which is that if you want to talk about control of substances people use, probably the most dangerous one I see out there is alcohol, not marijuana. You know, the patients who have excessive alcohol consumption turn violent. They're difficult to deal with, and it's a public nuisance often for both PD and EMS. Very few of those calls are related to marijuana. You know, Southampton is legalizing it. It's going to be legal on the reservation. People are taking marijuana. People have been using marijuana for decades. I think we have to have a very honest conversation about that. they will be using irrespective of being legal in East Hampton or not. I am of the school of thought here that it is far better to have a regulated industry than an unregulated one. If we are able to control how marijuana is sold in the town of East Hampton and tax it, I think that could potentially be a good thing. I absolutely understand why the board take that decision initially, because so much has been up in the air. So much is still up in the air. I know it's been a huge difficulty from New York State to actually get laws in place to allow these facilities to open effectively. It's been done elsewhere effectively. If you look at Massachusetts, I think their model has been successful. California too. I think the bigger question here is why people are using it. It's a mental health issue. People use alcohol and drugs as an escape. And I think we need to ensure we as a town continue, as Kathy Burke-Gonzalez and David have, to implement mental health resources to help people through difficult times instead of using drugs.
Thank you. David.
Yes, thank you very much. And I'm very glad that actually Tom just hit on the mental health aspect of this question on there, then, because it wasn't one I was necessarily going to go to, but it's one that Tom's exactly correct on. Any type of narcotic on there does have mental health issues. But to go towards the answer to the question on here, that the town opted out because the town can always opt back in. But when there was the pressure from the state to make sure that there was a deadline in place, the town necessarily was not ready. This might be decided by a future town board at some point right now, but any decision that has to be made would actually have to be making sure that you have the appropriate zoning in place right now. Council member Kate Rogers and Kathy Burke-Gonzalez are moving through different changes in our town zoning code. This will probably be discussed in that also. Part about opting out is saying, if you didn't opt out, okay, and you didn't say anything, you would have been opted in by New York State. That was the pressure that they were putting on the towns at that time. So you had to make a firm answer at the time. But the zoning has to be in place for any potential future town board to actually say they're going to opt on in. Where is appropriate for it, if it is even appropriate right now? Those decisions have to be decided in a very thought-provoking way that you bring in a lot of different individuals to bring in and find that out. One of the things that I do agree with what Mike said was about the healthy activities. We do need to bring our youth healthy activities. As a leader on the town board recently, Kathy Burke-Gonzalez supported myself as I brought the Montauk Skate Park together. We built that with a community private-public partnership. We also built the East Hampton Little League fields, which we get 300 kids playing a night. We also built other great basketball courts and Montauks and fields also. Lastly, what we did do is we knew that smoking was coming with marijuana. We banned it on our beaches. We banned it from lifeguarded areas. That's very important because lifeguarded areas are where the kids go. Keep it away from kids right now. Keep it away from schools. And there might be other things we need to do to ban just not smoking of marijuana, but potentially even nicotine and vaping also. We have to be careful of all of that. As a father, which we all are on this Zoom right now, we are very affected by this subject. So, Susan, I do appreciate the League of Women Voters for bringing this up.
Thank you. And Scott.
Hi, Susan. Yes, thank you. I am against the legalization of marijuana. I don't think that marijuana is it's not a motivator for children to smoke marijuana and then go out and participate in sports and go to the beach and go to the YMCA or learn how to surf or do any of these things. So to me, marijuana is even on a more so on a local issue, but even on a national issue, I don't support the legalization of marijuana. When I grew up, marijuana, they always said led to other drugs, and it's a horrible thing to teach our children that it's okay, and then start to do other drugs, vaping, and then lead to other drugs which are worse. So across the board, I'm not for having legalized marijuana shops in the town of East Hampton. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes the question portion of the debate. You now each have an opportunity to tell the voters why they should vote for you in your closing statement. 1 minute each, gentlemen, and we will begin with Michael.
Hey, thank you to League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's event. Again, my name is Michael Wootton. I want to start off by saying the town board has failed us. It has failed to serve the critical needs of the Springs with cell phone tower. Again, I feel like a broken record. It's still not operational after 10 years. It's failed our seniors. This current senior citizen center, I would call decrepit. I think it was promised in 2014. still long overdue. And of course, what about all the money spent on all the various legal entanglements? Trump Beach, the Maidstone Gun Club, and of course, the airport. These legal fees are staggering in the millions of dollars. Instead of supporting local business, they seem like they hassle local business owners. The ARB hassles the restaurant owners with color choice. And they give a hard time to the restaurant owners in Montauk about dancing. On the East Hampton Democrat webpage, they boast they've created 478 affordable housing units since they held the majority since 1983. That's over 40 years. I wouldn't necessarily call that an accomplishment. I wonder how many historic homes have been torn.
You may finish your sentence as long as you just don't, it doesn't become a run-on sentence.
I'm sorry. I guess the sentence was, I didn't keep track of my time. But I guess I wonder how many historic homes have been torn down and McMansions built in their place on quarter acre lots, all the while ignoring the comprehensive plan. I guess I have to wrap it up.
Okay, thank you. Scott.
Okay. So Mike hit on a few of the issues. I'm running for town board, obviously, because I have children in the community and I don't like the direction of the town. One of the things I don't like the direction is the affordable housing. 10 years ago, our goal was to build 1,000 units. Today we have 30, and we have 50 more units that are going to be open on 3 Mile Harbor. That's less than 10% of our goal as 10 years ago. It took 20 years to complete the senior center. There's lawsuit after lawsuit. Currently, there's a lawsuit against the East Hampton Village Fire Department, which is all volunteers, for $100 million. How can a town board sue the backbone of the community? These are volunteer people that work for the town. I don't understand the lawsuits, and I don't understand the direction that the town is headed when we do this. We need to bring pride back to the workplace, and we need to bring a collective energy of the community and have pride in the community that we're all proud of. Every voter that I spoke to on the street is just not happy with the direction that this town is headed. These are the reasons why I'm running, and these are the reasons why I asked for your vote, because I want to steer the ship in the correct direction. Thank you so much.
Thank you. David.
Sorry. If you don't understand the lawsuits, you shouldn't be a town board member right now. You shouldn't get this far, and that's a problem there. My name is David Lease. I'm not running to retain my town council member seat because of political gains or aspirations. I'm running to retain my town council seat because I know I have the background to help my hometown continue to be a leader and continue to shape East Hampton's future for mine and your children. As a lifelong resident and as your town council member, I've consistently demonstrated the ability to bring people together to solve problems. My life experience and desire to help East Hampton is what sets me apart from my competition. I will not wage a negative campaign full of false narratives to better myself in the eyes of East Hampton voters, as they are way too smart. Instead, I will let my record of volunteerism, community involvement, and accomplishments speak for myself. I will continue to defend all lawsuits that they try to change East Hampton's unique community character. We will continue to complete projects such as the Montauk Skate Park, Little League Fields, and the future Kentwell Court affordable housing project. For all those factors that I stated above, I respectfully ask you for your support on the upcoming vote on November 7th in the general election that can be found on row A and also on the Working Families Party line. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom.
So why am I running? I'm not running as a candidate who complains. I don't think that brings anything to the town. I'm running as someone who goes in to fix things. And I think my history of the town, be it through EMS, be it through on the school board, shows that. I think that's what you need in town. We'll talk about problems with affordable housing. It's not just an East Hampton problem. This is national. And if you look what the town board of East Hampton has done, it's significantly far ahead from any other townships you're seeing out there. We've talked about Cantwell Court. We've talked about Accabonac. We've talked about 3 Mile Harbor. We are on the move on this. We're ahead of the game. We still have more work to do, and we will do that. And that's what I look to do by getting elected by you November 7th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you to Tom Flight, David Lease, Scott Smith, and Michael Wootton. I'd also like to thank LTV for making it possible to view these debates on the LTV YouTube channel at a later date. And also to our timer, Eileen Mercer, Arlene Hinkemeyer, who's the League publicity Guru, and co-chairs of the Voter Services Committee, Neil Cohen and Ann Marshall. And I want you to all remember to vote and tell everyone you know to do so. I'm sure you gentlemen will do that, but our viewers should also do the same thing. Or take advantage, if you can't get to the polls on November 7th, you can take advantage of early voting, October 28th to November 5th, and check vote411.org for locations and times. Thank you very much. Good night.
I just want to let everybody know, 1 second, is that the YouTube live stream is already up and ready for replay if anyone needs to at home. All the best, everybody. Thank you for participating in our democracy. Take care.